Millionaire marries a girl in a contract marriage, finds out she's a virgin, and falls in love for real. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is now. Subscribe to the channel and let's get started. The city pulsed beyond the glass walls of Ethan Vance's office, a restless rhythm that matched the flicker in his gray eyes. Papers lay scattered on the mahogany desk, contracts and charts, but his gaze fixed on Maya Rodriguez, who stood before him, her dark hair catching the lamplight's glow. She clutched her bag, knuckles pale, her posture rigid as if bracing for a storm. The air held a weight, sharp and expectant, like the moment before rain. "You understand the terms?" Ethan's voice was low, each word clipped, a blade sheathed in velvet. He leaned back, fingers steepled, his tailored suit a second skin. The proposal hung between them. A marriage, a transaction, a lifeline for her mother's medical bills and his company's future. Vance Industries teetered, betrayed by those he once trusted, and this was his gambit. Maya's eyes, dark and fierce, met his. "I understand you're buying my life." Her tone was steady, but her fingers brushed the necklace at her throat, a silver thread from her mother's village days, worn smooth by her touch. She stepped closer, her shadow soft on the carpet. "What's in it for you, beyond the boardroom?" Ethan's jaw tightened, a flicker of pain crossing his face before the mask returned. His eyes darted to a framed photo on the desk, a woman with his sharp features, her nameplate reading Dr. E. Vance. Then back to Maya. Stability. Control. He rose, towering yet distant, and slid a contract across the desk. "Sign, and your mother's care is covered. No questions." She didn't touch the pen. The city's lights glittered through the window, a cold constellation, and Maya's breath caught, her mind racing to her mother's hospital bed. The beep of machines, the weight of debt like stones in her chest. Duty warred with pride, her heart a fragile bridge. "You know about her illness," she said, voice low. "How?" A pause, brief as a heartbeat. Ethan's gaze drifted, not to her, but to some unseen horizon. "I make it my business to know." His words were smooth, too smooth, like a stream hiding jagged rocks. He tapped the contract, impatient. "Time's short, Miss Rodriguez." Maya's hand hovered, trembling, then seized the pen. Her signature flowed, sharp and final, a mark of surrender and defiance. She straightened, chin lifted, her eyes locking with his. "This isn't a sale, Mr. Vance, it's a deal. Don't forget that." Ethan's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but his eyes softened, a crack in the armor. He took the contract, his fingers brushing hers, a spark in the touch that neither acknowledged. "Welcome to the game," he said, voice quieter now, almost human. He turned to the window, city lights painting his face in shadows, and Maya wondered what he saw, profit, power, or something lost. She stepped back, her heels silent on the carpet, but paused at the door. The lamplight cast Ethan's bought silhouette, tall and solitary, a man carrying more than ambition. Her gaze lingered, catching a tremor in his hand as he gripped the contract, a secret held tight, like a shadow half seen in dawn's light. "Good night," she said, her voice softer than she meant, and slipped into the corridor. The elevator's hum swallowed her thoughts, but that flicker in Ethan's eyes stayed with her, a question unanswered. He knew more than he said about her mother, perhaps the cracks in her world. Maya's hand touched her necklace, grounding her. This was no marriage, not yet, but a pact struck under a lantern's glow, fragile as trust, sharp as truth. The penthouse gleamed, all steel and glass, a stage dressed as a home. Maya stood at the edge of the living room, her suitcase at her feet, a breeze through village palms, a faint memory against the city's pulse. Ethan's voice carried from the kitchen, sharp and distracted, arranging movers for her things. She clutched her wallet, fingers tracing the faded photograph inside. Her mother under a village lantern, smile wide, eyes alive. The memory stung, a thread to a world slipping away. "Pick a room," Ethan said, appearing with a glass of water, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. His gray eyes scanned her, not unkind but guarded, like a man watching a storm approach. His shoulders tensed, a guarded reflex. Maya nodded, her steps light on the marble floor, her dark hair swaying as she moved past him. The hallway stretched, doors like sentinels, each room vast and cold. White walls, bare shelves, a life unlived. She chose the smallest, its window framing a sliver of sky, and set her suitcase down. "This'll do," she said, voice steady, though her chest tightened. This wasn't home, just a pack's backdrop. Ethan leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. You don't need to shrink yourself here. His words were blunt, but his gaze softened, catching the way her fingers traced her collarbone, a nervous habit. What's that? He asked, nodding at her necklace, his voice quieter, almost curious. She hesitated, pride flaring, then unclasped it, holding the pendant up. My mother's, from her village. Her lips twitched, a half smile. She said it held the moon's secrets. The memory spilled out, nights under banyan trees, her mother weaving baskets by lantern light, a skill Maya longed to teach her own children. She'd weave with her one day, passing the skill to her own. Maya's voice caught, and she looked away, the city's lights blurring into stars. Ethan stepped closer, his shadow falling soft. I had a kite once, he said, words sudden, unguarded. Red, with a dragon's face, flew it till a storm took it. His eyes drifted, seeing a boy, a field, a loss. Never got another. The confession hung, fragile as a spider's thread, binding them in the silence. Maya's breath hitching, her guard slipping. Maybe you'll fly one again someday, she said, her tone soft, planting a quiet hope. Ethan shrugged, a flicker of a smile, but his shoulders tensed again, a storm stirring. You shared yours, he said simply, then turned away, the moment snapping shut. She followed him back to the living room, the photograph's weight anchoring her. Ethan's phone buzzed, and he answered, his voice dropping to a blade's edge. Serena, not now. Maya froze, the name a jolt, like a song half remembered. He paced, words clipped. The project stays buried, and hung up, his face a mask, but his eyes flickered to a document on the counter, marked E. Vance in Genesis, unnoticed by Maya. Who's Serena? She asked, voice low, her hands steady despite the pulse in her throat. Ethan's gaze hardened, a wall rising. No one you need to know. His tone was final, but his fingers twitched, betraying a truth he wouldn't speak. Maya stepped closer, her pride a quiet fire. If I'm in this, I need the board, not the pieces. He looked at her, really looked. And for a heartbeat, the penthouse wasn't a cage, but a stage where two souls stood bare. She's the past, he said, voice rough, and turned to the window, city lights painting his face in shadows. Maya watched him, the photograph heavy in her wallet. Serena's name lingered, a secret unspoken, like a melody caught in the dusk. She moved to unpack, her steps quick, but paused at the kitchen counter, where Ethan had left a glass of water for her untouched. The gesture, small and unasked, softened her edges, a ripple in the stream of their pact. She sipped it, the coolness grounding her, and glanced at Ethan's silhouette, solitary against the glass. He carried more than ambition, a wound, a name, a kite lost in a storm. A village breeze whispered in her mind, and her chest warmed. This was no marriage, but a pact, teetering like a lantern in the wind. The ballroom glittered, chandeliers casting light like scattered stars. But Maya felt the weight of eyes, sharp and probing, as she stood beside Ethan. Her emerald dress clung to her frame, her dark hair swept up, exposing the curve of her neck. Ethan's hand rested on her arm, a rehearsed touch, but his fingers lingered, warm, stirring a pulse she ignored. The corporate gala buzzed. Executives, investors, whispers of Vance Industries' fragile edge. They were here to play their parts, a married couple, a united front, but the air crackled, taut as a bowstring. Smile, Ethan murmured, his breath brushing her ear, his gaze scanning the crowd. His suit was immaculate, but his jaw twitched, a flicker of unease. Maya's lips curved, tight and practiced, her gaze darting to faces she didn't know, each one a potential threat to their charade. I'm trying, she shot back, voice low, her hand steady, a quiet anchor. Her mother's hospital bed loomed in her mind, the beep of machines a distant drum. They moved through the crowd, Ethan's hand guiding her, their steps a dance of necessity. A shareholder approached, all teeth and questions, and Ethan's charm flared, smooth words, a firm handshake. But Maya caught his other hand, clenched at his side, a secret storm. She stepped in, her voice sharp, deflecting a pointed query about the company's future. Ethan's eyes flicked to her, a glint of surprise, then gratitude, a thread weaving between them. The music shifted, a slow waltz, and Ethan pulled her to the dance floor, his grip firm yet gentle. The board needs an heir to trust us, he whispered, his jaw softening, unguarded, the claws a quiet weight. Maya's hand rested on his shoulder, her body close, their movements fluid despite the tension. His scent, cedar, steel, mingled with the room's perfume, and her heart tripped, unbidden. "You're good at this," she said, half teasing, her eyes searching his, seeking the man behind the mask. He spun her, a fleeting smile breaking through. "You're not bad yourself." His hand tightened on hers, a warmth lingered, and for a moment the gala faded, the world narrowing to their shared rhythm. But Maya's gaze drifted, catching a figure at the crowd's edge. Tall, blonde, her smile sharp as a blade. Serena Thorne stood, her hand clutching a folder marked Genesis, her eyes darting to Ethan with a predator's focus. Maya's breath caught. "Who's that?" she asked, her voice a whisper, her steps faltering. Ethan's grip stiffened, his face a mask again. "No one, he said, too quick. But his eyes followed hers, and the name slipped out, barely audible. Serena. The word was a stone, sinking into Maya's chest. Serena's presence tied to the project reframed Ethan's guarded nature, casting his proposal in a new light, like a familiar face seen anew under starlight. They stepped off the dance floor, the music fading, and Ethan led her to a terrace, the city sprawling below, its lights a cold constellation. The air was crisp and Maya shivered, her dress no shield against the chill or the truth. "Tell me about her," she said, voice low, her hands steady despite the pulse in her throat. Ethan leaned on the railing, his silhouette stark against the sky, his fingers gripping the metal. "She's the past," he said, voice rough, but his eyes held a storm, pain and secrets swirling. "She betrayed me, the company, everything." He looked at her, really looked, and Maya saw the weight he carried, not just ambition, but loss. Her heart softened, a crack in her pride. "And me?" she asked, stepping closer, her hands steady, a quiet anchor. "Am I just a move against her?" His gaze faltered, then held hers, raw and unguarded. "You're more than that." The words were quiet, a confession, and Maya's breath hitched, her mind racing to her mother, her debts, the contract that bound them. She spoke, unthinking, her voice a fragile melody. "My mother's fading, Ethan. Every day I lose her a little more." The admission spilled, unbidden, and his hand reached for hers, a fleeting touch that anchored her. Serena's shadow lingered, her folder a blade in Maya's memory, but Ethan's touch was real, his silence a bridge. The stars above seemed closer, their light a quiet promise, and a quiet hope flickered. This was no marriage but a trust, fragile as a breeze over the city's quiet pulse. The hospital's fluorescent glow cast shadows on Maya's face, her dark eyes fixed on her mother's frail form, tubes snaking across pale skin. The beep of monitors was a relentless pulse, each sound a reminder of time slipping away. Maya stood, her emerald dress from the gala replaced by a worn sweater, her hair loose, framing her exhaustion. Ethan stood at the door, his suit rumpled, his gaze weary, scanning the room with a quiet intensity. "She's stable," the doctor said, voice clipped, but Maya's shoulders didn't ease. Stable wasn't enough. Her mother's chest rose and fell, fragile as a leaf in autumn, and Maya's heart twisted, duty and fear braided tight. She recalled her mother, a biologist, studying late, papers strewn, speaking of aiding fertility, her research a quiet dream. Ethan stepped closer, his presence a steady weight. "I've arranged for Dr. Lynn," he said low, his hand hovering near her arm, not touching. "The best. She's on a plane now." Maya's head snapped up, her gaze sharp, searching his. "You did what?" Her voice was a blade, pride flaring despite the gratitude flooding her chest. Dr. Lynn was a name whispered in medical circles, a miracle worker for cases like her mother's. The cost was unthinkable, yet Ethan had acted, unasked, his gesture piercing her defenses like a breeze through bamboo. He met her stare, unflinching, but his jaw clenched, a silent struggle. "You don't need to fight alone," he said, voice rough, almost human. The words hung, heavy as the hospital's sterile air, and Maya's throat tightened, her mind racing to the gala, Serena's folder, the contract that bound them. This wasn't in the deal, this quiet kindness, and it scared her, owing him more than money, more than time. She turned back to her mother, her hand brushing the thin blanket, grounding her. "Thank you," she whispered, the words raw, her pride bending like a reed. Ethan nodded, a flicker of relief in his eyes, and stepped back, giving her space. But his hand grazed hers as he moved, a spark in the touch, fleeting yet profound, like a lantern's glow in a storm. Maya's heart stuttered, her walls crumbling, and she hated how much she needed that warmth. They left the hospital, the city's dawn painting the sky in soft pinks, the scent of morning dew, a faint echo. In Ethan's car, silence settled, thick but not cold. Maya's fingers traced her necklace, her mother's face vivid, laughing under village stars, strong, not fading. Ethan glanced at her, his jaw tight, as if wrestling his own ghosts. "She'll pull through," he said, voice low, a promise he couldn't keep but meant. At the penthouse, Maya moved to her room, her steps quick, but paused at Ethan's study, the door ajar. Papers littered the desk, a coffee mug half full, and a note caught her eye, scrawled in Ethan's sharp hand, Project Genesis, M. Rodriguez, consultant, 1995. Her mother's name a shock beside E. Vance. Her breath caught, the words a jolt, like a thread woven into a forgotten tapestry. Serena's folder at the Gala, the document in the kitchen. Now this. Her mother's work tied to Ethan's secrets. Her hand trembled, reaching for the note, but she stopped, her heart a fragile bridge between trust and doubt. She found him in the kitchen, pouring coffee, his back to her. "What's Project Genesis?" she asked, voice low, her eyes burning into his. Ethan froze, his hand mid-motion, then turned, his face a mask, but his eyes flickered. Caught. "Nothing you need to worry about," he said, too smooth, his jaw clenching again. Maya stepped closer, her pride a quiet fire. "My mother's name was on your desk. Don't lie to me." His gaze faltered, a storm swirling, and for a heartbeat, the penthouse wasn't a cage, but a stage where truths teetered. "It's complicated," he said, voice rough, his hand twitching as if to reach for her. "Trust me, Maya." The plea was raw, unguarded, and her chest tightened, torn between the man who'd saved her mother and the secrets he kept. She held his stare. Maya realized his knowledge came from corporate spies, not care. A truth that stung, and the dawn's light soft but unyielding. A question unanswered, like a shadow on a lotus pond. The garden behind the penthouse bloomed in soft greens, a rare pocket of quiet, jasmine's breath sweet in the air. Maya sat on a stone bench, her hands cradling her stomach, the faint curve beneath her sweater, a secret now shared. "Twins," the doctor had said, her voice a mix of joy and warning, the contract's air clause suddenly real. Sunlight filtered through vines, dappling her brown skin, her dark eyes distant, fixed on a memory of her mother's village, where children ran under banyan trees. Her hands firm, a steady weight, but her heart raced, fear and hope braided tight. Ethan stood nearby, his suit jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up, his gaze softened, bright with wonder. He'd taken the news with a stillness that broke into a smile, rare and unguarded, his hand reaching for hers before he stopped himself. "Twins," he said now, voice low, almost reverent, as he knelt beside her, the grass staining his knees. "The board will back us now, but Serena sees them as her prize." His tone held a question, not of the contract, but of her heart, and Maya's breath caught, the weight of his gaze like a touch. She nodded, her lips trembling into a smile. "Scared, but yes." Her voice was a melody, fragile yet fierce, and she looked at him, really looked, seeing not the CEO but the man who'd arranged her mother's care, who'd shared a kite's loss. Her mother had stirred that morning, her voice stronger, a spark of hope. The garden's scent, earth, blooms grounded her, but the note from his study, her mother's name beside E. Vance, lingered, a shadow on this joy. "And you?" she asked, her eyes searching his, seeking truth. Ethan's hand found hers, his touch warm, deliberate. "I didn't expect this," he said, voice rough. "But I want it. Them. Us." The words were a confession, raw and unpolished, and Maya's heart stuttered, her walls crumbling under his tenderness. She squeezed his hand, a warmth lingered, and for a moment the world narrowed to their shared breath. He pulled a sketch from his pocket, a red dragon kite drawn for the twins, a quiet promise of the boy he'd been, but the moment shattered. His phone buzzed, a harsh intrusion, and Ethan's face darkened as he read the message. "Serena," he muttered, standing, his hand slipping from hers. Maya's pulse spiked, the name a blade, cutting through the garden's peace. "What now?" she asked, voice sharp, rising to her feet, her hands protective over her stomach. Ethan's eyes met hers, a storm swirling. "She's threatening the board, the twins, their leverage." Maya's chest tightened, fear flaring, but her pride burned brighter. "Leverage?" she snapped, stepping closer, her hands firm, a steady weight. "Tell me everything, Ethan. No more secrets." Her voice was a command, her eyes fierce, and he flinched, caught in her gaze. He paced, fingers raking his hair, then stopped, his voice low, urgent. Project Genesis. It's bigger than I thought. Serena's after it. Control. Power. Your mother's name. It's tied to the research. Her breath hitched, the note's shadow now a crack in the garden's soft rustle. My mother, she whispered, her hands trembling. But Ethan's eyes held hers, pleading. I didn't know, Maya, not until recently. I swear. His voice broke, a man unmoored, and she saw the weight he carried. Not just ambition, but betrayal, loss, and now this fragile hope of them. Her heart wavered, torn between doubt and the man sketching kites in the grass. In the kitchen later, Maya chopped vegetables, her mother's recipe for caldo, the rhythm grounding her. Ethan watched, silent, then joined her, his hands clumsy but earnest, slicing carrots. The act was small, intimate, a bridge over the rift. You cook like her, he said, voice quiet, and Maya's lips curved, a flicker of warmth. But her eyes drifted to his phone, silent now, and the crack remained, a question unanswered. The jasmine's breath lingered and a quiet hope flickered, a bond teetering like a lantern in the wind. Rain lashed the city, a gray curtain blurring the penthouse windows, the world reduced to the patter on glass and the scent of wet earth. Maya stood in the living room, her dark eyes blazing, her hands cradling the faint swell of her stomach where the twins grew. Her sweater clung to her, damp from their dash through the storm, her hair loose, strands sticking to her brown skin. Ethan faced her, his shirt soaked, his gaze stormy, his jaw set but his hands trembling, betraying a man unmoored. Papers lay scattered on the coffee table. Project Genesis files, stolen from Serena's office. Their secrets now bare. You knew, Maya said, voice low, sharp as a blade, her resolve unyielding, a steady weight. You knew my mother was part of this, and you said nothing. Her words cut, each one a step on a fragile bridge, her pride afire despite the fear coiling in her chest. The files detailed a fertility project twisted by greed, and her mother's name, Maria Rodriguez, appeared as a consultant, her work exploited by Serena's family. The twins, their twins, were a target, leverage in a corporate war. Ethan's hands clenched, rain dripping from his hair onto the carpet. I didn't know, not at first, he said, voice rough, urgent, his eyes pleading. I found out after the gala. I was trying to protect you. His step toward her was hesitant, as if crossing a chasm, but his gaze held hers, raw, unguarded, a man stripped of his mask. Maya's heart wavered, the memory of his kite sketch in the garden clashing with the note in his study, the secrets he'd kept. Protect me, she snapped, stepping by, her hands protective over her stomach. By lying, by letting Serena threaten our children? Her voice broke, a crack in her strength, and the rain's rhythm filled the silence, a folk melody slow and haunting. She turned to the files, her fingers tracing her mother's name, the ink smudged by rain. Her mother's laughter under village lanterns, her strength, felt distant now, drowned by betrayal. Her mother had called that morning, voice steady, promising to meet them soon, a spark of hope. Ethan's breath hitched, and he moved closer, his hand hovering near her arm, not daring to touch. I didn't know her, Maya, I swear it. Serena's family, they used her work, twisted it. His voice was a plea, rough with guilt, and he sank onto the couch, his head in his hands, rain pooling at his feet. I thought I could fix it, keep you safe, but I was wrong. The confession hung, fragile as a spider's thread, and Maya's chest tightened, torn between the man who'd knelt in the grass and the shadows he carried. She faced him, her eyes fierce, the storm outside mirroring the one within. Then tell me everything, she said, voice steady now, her pride a quiet flame. Ethan looked up, his face pale and nodded. He spoke, words tumbling fast. Serena's obsession with Project Genesis, her family's decades-long scheme to control its patents, the fertility tech that promised miracles but hid corruption. Maya's mother had been a pioneer, her research stolen, her name buried until now. A file note read, E. Vance, presumed dead, vanished after threats, whereabouts unknown. Ethan's voice cracked as he admitted his own blindness, trusting Serena too long, letting her poison linger. He'd hired investigators, chasing whispers of her life, a son's quiet vow. Maya listened, her hands still on her stomach, the twins a quiet anchor. The rain's rhythm, wet earth, renewal, grounded her, but her mind raced, piecing together Serena's threats, the note, the Gala's folder. "And the twins?" she asked, voice low, her eyes searching his. "Why them?" Ethan's gaze faltered, then held hers, raw with fear. "They're proof the tech works, a legacy Serena wants to claim." His hand reached for hers, trembling, and this time she didn't pull away, their fingers lacing, a steady pulse that steadied her. "I'll find her, or her truth," he whispered, a vow to his mother's shadow. The door buzzer screamed, shattering the moment, and Ethan's phone lit up. Serena, demanding a meeting, her threats now demands for the files. Maya's pulse spiked, but her resolve hardened, a village stream finding its course. "We end this," she said, voice fierce, standing, her sweater clinging to her like armor. Ethan nodded, his hand tightening on hers, and they moved as one, gathering the files, their steps quick, the rain's rhythm urging them on. They met Serena in a warehouse, its metal walls echoing the storm, the air thick with damp and tension. Serena stood under a flickering bulb, her blonde hair sleek, her smile a blade, alone, her confidence a fragile shield. "You brought her," she said, eyes on Maya, voice dripping venom. "Bold." Maya stepping forward, her resolve unyielding, a steady weight, her voice steady. "You used my mother's work. You won't touch my children." Her words were a shield, her pride a fire, and Ethan's hand brushed her back, a silent vow. Serena laughed, sharp and cold, but her eyes flickered, caught by the files in Ethan's hand. "Give me those, and this ends," she said. But Ethan's voice cut through, low, fierce. "You're done, Serena. The board knows. The police are coming." His words were a reckoning, and Maya saw fear flash in Serena's eyes, a crack in her mask. Maya's gaze held Serena's, unyielding, her mother's strength in her veins. The files revealed more than Serena's scheme. A name, Dr. Evelyn Vance, Ethan's mother, listed as Genesis's founder, her legacy stolen. Ethan froze, his face pale, the truth a blow he hadn't seen coming. Maya's hand found his, grounding him, her eyes soft but fierce. "We'll find her truth," she whispered, and his nod was a vow, their bond a bridge over the storm. Serena lunged for the files, but sirens wailed, close, leaving her alone, her empire crumbling. They stepped back into the rain, hands clasped, the files clutched tight. The city blurred, its lights a constellation, and Maya's heart stirred. The path they'd sought, Serena's downfall, led to an unexpected home, a legacy Ethan never knew, a mother's shadow waiting to be reclaimed. The rain washed over them, cold but cleansing, her necklace a star in the storm, her twins a promise, their bond a dawn yet to break. The village tree spread its branches wide, its leaves whispering in the late afternoon breeze, a canopy of green over the small gathering. Maya stood beneath it, her dark hair loose, catching the golden light, her hands resting on the swell of her stomach where another child grew, a surprise conceived in love, not contract. Her twins, a boy and a girl, toddled nearby, their laughter a melody, chasing a red dragon kite Ethan flew, its tail dancing, a boy's dream reborn. Her brown skin glowed, her necklace warm, a mother's love, watching from a woven chair, her smile soft as a village dawn. Her mother had walked unaided that week, her laughter echoing Maya's childhood, a recovery hard won. Maya wove a small basket with the twins, her mother's hands guiding hers, a skill reborn. Ethan knelt beside the twins, his suit traded for a linen shirt, sleeves rolled up, his gaze bright with a warmth Maya once thought impossible. He scooped their daughter up, her giggles ringing, and glanced at Maya, his smile unguarded, a man remade. The village, her mother's birthplace, hummed with life, children running, elders murmuring, the scent of jasmine and earth thick in the air. The twins, no longer a clause but a family, secured Vance Industries' heart, not its boardroom. The board, swayed by the twins' birth and Ethan's resolve, stabilized the company, a victory quiet but sure. They'd come to honor a legacy not just her mother's, but Ethan's mother, Dr. Evelyn Vance, whose work in Project Genesis would now heal, not harm. A wooden plaque stood under the tree, carved with simple words, Vance Rodriguez Foundation for Ethical Research. Ethan had poured his wealth into it, a promise to his mother's vision, uncovered in the Genesis files. His search for her continued, her legacy enough, for now, carried in the Foundation's work. Serena's trial had ended, her schemes laid bare, her name a fading echo. Maya's hand brushed Ethan's as they stood before the plaque, their fingers lacing, a steady pulse that anchored her. Her heart, once a fragile bridge, was steady now, built on trust forged through storms. Ready? Ethan asked, voice low, his eyes searching hers, soft but fierce. Maya nodded, her lips curving, and they stepped forward, the crowd quieting, their faces a tapestry of village life. She spoke first, her voice clear, a folk melody carrying over the grass. "This is for those who dream of healing," she said, her hand on her necklace, her mother's strength in her veins. "For my mother, Maria. For Evelyn. For our children." Her words were a vow, and the crowd murmured, their nods a shared breath. Ethan's turn came, his voice rough but steady, his hand tight on hers. "My mother gave everything for this," he said, his eyes distant, seeing a kite soaring, a boy alive. "We'll make it right." His gaze found Maya, raw, grateful, and she saw the man who'd sketched a kite, who'd faced Serena's blade, who'd chosen her, not power. The twins ran to him, their small hands tugging his, and he laughed, a sound like rain after drought. The ceremony ended, and the village stirred, music rising, a flute, a drum, a song of home. Maya's mother joined them, her steps slow but sure, her hand on Maya's arm. "You've made me proud," she whispered, her eyes wet, and Maya's throat tightened, her pride a quiet flame. They sat under the tree, the twins climbing Ethan's lap, Maya's head on his shoulder, their hands clasped, warm and whole. The city was far, its pulse a memory, and here time slowed, each moment a breath of peace. The sun dipped, painting the sky in pinks and golds, the tree's shadow long and soft. Maya's eyes traced the plaque, Evelyn's name beside her mother's, a legacy reclaimed. Ethan's fingers brushed her cheek, his touch a promise, and she leaned into it, her heart full, not complete but shared, like a village stream finding its course. The twins' laughter rang, the flute's notes soared, and the kite soared high, a star in the dusk, their love a dawn breaking over a lotus pond. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that hope can be found in the most surprising moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heartwarming Love Story. We bring you stories that touch the soul, renew your belief in kindness, and highlight what's truly important in life.